buried on page A37 or something that alluded to this, but I think this is a high-profile, showing of that. So I think Loretta Lynch definitely is one of the losers coming out of this hearing.
And one of the things that he specifically said is that he felt uncomfortable because the language that Lynch was asking him to use seemed very similar to the language the Clinton campaign was using.
Yeah, there are countervailing political pressures here. One of them coming from Comey himself. I mean, he hasn't survived as a high-level political operator in Washington this long by not being able to play the game himself. So you have to look at what his incentives are, not just Democratic versus Republican versus Trump versus others that might not like him or the media or what have you. His incentives throughout this whole process is to cover his own perspective and make sure that he's not eventually criminally liable for something. So it's three-dimensional chess, somewhat like a House of Cards, but without the murder.
Let's hope without the murder. I know there's some conspiracy theories out there about that. So you brought up the New York Times. They were mentioned a lot today. Comey specifically said that he had seen a lot of media reporting from quote-unquote anonymous sources that were complete false rhetoric.
Yeah, the media's use of anonymous sources is really irresponsible because if you're using that kind of sourcing or just language that says, we haven't confirmed yet, but early indications suggest, that means absolutely nothing. That is editorializing or insinuations, and it's really irresponsible, particularly in our current highly charged political environment. One thing, it's kind of ironic that the Times was mentioned in that context, in that Comey himself engineered the leak of his own memo about that important meeting with Trump alone in the Oval, where they talked about the investigation of Mike Flynn. He realized at a certain point that he needed to get he wanted a special counsel to be appointed, as Bob Mueller eventually was, and that's why Comey himself arranged for that leak. That is another new thing that came out of this hearing, and that's significant.
It is significant, especially because I feel like we've been hearing from both sides of the aisle that he's kind of a Boy Scout, that he does things by the letter of the law. And of course, I don't think what he did, and this is where your legal expertise would come in, I don't think him leaking that information was illegal. But Senator Lankford also, and Senator Rubio as well, said, well, we want to see those memos because they haven't been able to obtain them from the FBI.
That's exactly right. There's a joint bipartisan request by the Senate Judiciary Committee that hasn't been, and the Intelligence Committee that hasn't been met. And to paraphrase Marco Rubio, who had, I thought, an effective line of questioning as well, but to paraphrase Rubio from the election campaign, don't think that he didn't know what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing, meaning Comey. And at the same time, from that meeting that was leaked, the memo that was leaked about Flynn, if, as Comey said, as he testified, he thought that Trump's saying, I hope you can just let this go, if he understood that to be an instruction or a direction, well, either that was obstruction of justice. I don't think we have evidence to show that it was. And if it was obstruction of justice, then Comey would have had a duty to report it, to refer it to the U.S. attorney himself to resign. Or what have you, but since he didn't act, he decided that it was an instruction akin to the historic "who will rid me of this foolish priest" that he used in his testimony. If it's akin to that, and yet he neither acted upon it nor resigned. So what does that tell you about Comey himself? That he thought it was an instruction, but it also wasn't an instruction. Again, these are things that Bob Mueller will have to dig into in his special counsel investigation.
So I think that in a lot of ways, people that are Trump supporters or on the right side of the aisle are going to say that President Trump was vindicated because he was never a part of the Russia investigation. And when he referenced in that letter to the public and to the media about how Comey had told him on 3 different occasions that he wasn't under investigation, Comey's opening statement backed that up. But I think that the Democrats are going to latch on to, well, then why was Comey fired in the first place? And he did call Donald Trump a liar quite a few times today.
Yeah, even though it's not quite the case, as I said, that we didn't learn anything from the hearing. There were at least those 3 points that I mentioned. But it is true that what everyone was saying going into the hearing, that whatever your position was going in is what your position is coming out, and that's absolutely true. Donald Trump doesn't look, isn't completely vindicated legally or otherwise. There's no smoking gun, certainly, but if that's a low bar to surpass. On the other hand, Comey said repeatedly Trump was not being investigated. There's no evidence of collusion yet. Who knows what's going on in their closed hearing? That's going on as we speak. But certainly in the open hearing, we don't have any new evidence of new things other than that Donald Trump is not acting as a normal. This is unusual behavior for a president, but then this is also unusual behavior for an FBI director. So again, I would caution wherever you stand on the political spectrum or your legal views going into this, reserve judgment until we see what the Mueller investigation finds.
And what do you think the timeline, or when do you think that the American people, or specifically our elected officials in the legislative branch, will have answers about the Mueller investigation?
It's hard to tell, and it's hard to know what lifting up various rocks will uncover. Remember, the Whitewater investigation ended up with Monica Lewinsky and an impeachment for obstruction of justice in a completely different way than it was originally intended. That's not to say that something like that will happen, or that Bob Mueller will keep digging until he finds something, even if it's not related to Russia or pressuring Comey or anything like that. But it's really, this could take a long time, or Mueller could go about and say, a month from now, I haven't really found, here are my findings. They don't make the president look particularly good, but there's nothing illegal here, and that's it. Again, really too early to tell. These things aren't, thankfully, not yet, are they par for the course that we have special counsel investigations of presidential wrongdoing.
So is there anything like new that you think either side will kind of go gangbusters and be talking about all day long on the cable news networks?
Well, we've covered them. The Loretta Lynch downgrading of the Hillary Clinton investigation, or whatever political pressure brought to bear. That's certainly what the RNC is going to be hitting on. Calling Trump a liar or disagreeing with his account of certain things. Certainly, that's what Trump's opponents are going to be hitting on. And the Comey leak, that he orchestrated the leak, that really doesn't paint him in a good light. So regardless of whether, and Comey, of course, has tried to play every side. Both Democrats and Republicans have assailed him at different times in the last year. So he's trying to find some sort of third way out of all this to preserve his reputation. That's going to be hard to do. He's kind of going to be the empty screen on which everybody projects their views, but that screen is going to get befouled while all this is going on.
Comey made it very clear that he did not buy the White House's public reasoning for his firing. Do you think that President Trump is still going to have to answer questions for American citizens and mainly to the mainstream media about why he decided to fire Jim Comey?
Well, there were multiple reasons issued by the White House. There was the official reasoning in the memo by Rod Rosenstein, but then Trump said that he had the intention of firing him all along in his interview with Lester Holt on NBC. And I think there were some other slightly further differences via Twitter and otherwise. So here in my mind, as someone who follows Washington goings on and specifically legal policy, I don't have it clear in my mind what exactly the White House line is at this point on why Comey was fired. At the end of the day, I don't know if it matters that much, because Comey was correct in saying that the president can fire the FBI director for any reason or no reason at all, and certainly the president's supporters are going to spin the way that makes him look good, and the president's detractors will spin the opposite way. But at the end of the day, it's what exactly the president did. Did he pressure Comey or otherwise? Did he fire him because he thought that Comey was discovering something nefarious? Probably not that, but who knows? This has been an unusual and somewhat erratic presidency, to say the least. So the reason that's finally lawyered up and settled on paper might not matter as much as whatever Mueller finds of who had contacts with Russia, who had contacts with Comey beyond that. What is the Hillary Clinton email investigation? Does it even have anything to do with this? Or are we talking about two completely separate things. So a lot of, as I said, both sides will take from today's events what they want. But at the end of the day, this is all to be continued.
All right. Well, we really appreciate your expertise. Everyone should be head on over to Cato and check out Ilya's writings. He's great on Twitter as well. Ilya, thanks so much for your time today.
My Twitter feed is @iShapiro. I welcome all of you to have a friendly discussion, as they say.
Constructive dialogue. We'll see how that goes for you. And only 140 characters, sometimes it can be difficult. But we thank you so much, and everyone should definitely be sure to follow him on Twitter. And don't forget that these PragerU Lives and our PragerU videos are able to be free because of generous donations from people like you. So please click the donate button when you can. Right now would be a great time so you don't forget. And actually, we have some pretty cool gift options happening right now, like a beach towel. Everyone needs one for the summer. So check that out on PragerU.com. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this edition of PragerU Live. I'm Ilya Shapiro, signing off.